Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the March 29th, 2022 meeting of the City Plan Commission. Before we begin, I will outline the procedure that we will follow for our public hearing. As each agenda item is called, the applicant or his or her representative and persons for the request will be allowed to speak. Then persons against the request will be allowed to speak. If there is opposition to the request, the applicant may be allowed to make a short rebuttal. All persons wishing to speak need to come to the microphone at the front of the room. Please state your name and address for the record. All statements made should be relevant to the agenda item and limited to 3 minutes. If there are several persons in favor of or opposed to a request, we encourage you to allow 1 or 2 persons to act as a spokesperson for the group. If you like, a spokesperson for the group may request that the group stand and be recognized. While public discourse is very important to the Commission, we have to maintain order in the meeting so that all persons may be heard and city business may be conducted. If so directed by me, the Sergeant at Arms shall remove from this meeting any person while addressing the Commission or while attending the Commission meeting who makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, who becomes boisterous, or makes unauthorized remarks from the audience, stopping of feet, whistles, yells, or similar demonstrations. The Commission members have reviewed each of these items in a previous work session. The recommendations we make tonight to the City Council will be based on the work session and the information provided by staff, as well as any additional information presented tonight. After completing the hearing on each item, the Commission will consider action on the item. The action taken tonight on these items will be in the form of a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will also conduct a hearing on these items, which will be held on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. the Bosque Theater of the Waco Convention Center, 100 Washington Avenue. The record and recommendation of the Plan Commission and new testimony will be considered by the Council at that time. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our February 22nd, 2022 work session and February 22nd, 2022 business meeting. Are there any changes or additions? Seeing none, they will stand approved as written. We'll move on to our agenda items. Our first agenda items are subdivisions. We'll be taking, I believe, items 3, 4, and 8 up first. Mr. Peters, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And I did want to clarify on the council dates for the agenda item 1 and 2, the first 2 plats. Those will actually go to the April 5th city council meeting, and the rest will be the 19th. We are going to take the 3 subdivisions, take the plats a little bit out of order. We'd like to have the 3 plats that have variance requests, go through those first. And so the first one of those is agenda item 3. This is a public hearing on the final plat of the Lindsay Farms edition, lots 1 through 4, block 1. And then we also have a variance request for the requirement for public water source per Waco subdivision ordinance, proposed subdivision plat entitled final plat of the Lindsay Farms edition, lot 1 through 4, block 1. Staff does recommend approval of the variance concerning the water line extension based on the following findings and condition. The findings that the extraordinary hardships or significant practical difficulty may result from strict compliance with the subdivision ordinance regulations, and the effect of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, welfare, or interest of the property. And due to specific conditions of the site involved, strict enforcement of these regulations would impose an undue hardship on that applicant. We do have 3 conditions. The first being permits for the water wells must be approved by the Southern Trinity Groundwater Conservation District, and water wells installed before development of the addition. 2, that a note on the plat must be added stating that the lots are served by private wells and not a public water source. And 3, further subdivision of the lots that increase the number of lots will require the extension of public water main to serve the new subdivision.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak or would like to? Just come down, state your name and address, and address the commission.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Willard. I live at 505 Keys Creek Drive. in Waco. Pretty much covered everything that was in the packet included. I feel that we've done our due diligence to provide everything showing that they're meeting the request of the city. The property currently has one domestic well on it. The city of Waco, closest city of Waco water to that property is 5,600 feet. So it would put a very hardship on us to provide city of Waco water there at a cost well over $500,000 to do so. Currently, there is 17 residential properties down Lindsay Lane. All but 2 currently have domestic wells. The other 2 have 1.5-inch private lines closer to Rock Creek Road, which is not even a valid option anymore. We've had Waco Drilling already come out, do the test sites, show that there's abundant water there available. I have put that in the packet that I've given to y'all. And then also in there is a letter stating that the permits are available from Southern Trinity groundwater. At this point, I think we've complied with all the requirements and also maintain the preservation of the rural residential land designation set forth in the comprehensive plan. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Have any questions for the applicant? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here to speak in favor on that item? Oh, please come down. If you can state your name and address.
Sharon Bostic, 1702 Lindsay Lane.
You can come on down here.
I'll say it again. Sharon Bostic, 1702 Lindsay Lane. I've got 3 letters. My family primarily live past and attached to the land that they are looking at buying. I can read them. They're brief. They're similar. I'll read if you would like, or I can just present them to you. But we all are considering the 2 Kyles very good neighbors already and helpful, and we believe it would be a benefit to our area to have them there. My brother is Terry Don Phillips. One of the letters is from him, and I'll read that one. He is who sold them the land and put certain stipulations so that it would maintain the integrity of our area, and they have certainly obliged by it. So I'll just read that one, and then you can tell me if you'd like me to read the others. I, Terry Don Phillips, living at 1809 Lindsay Lane in Bosqueville since 1976, am aware of and support the replat proposed for Lindsay Farm Estates, neighboring our family's home. I am the previous owner, having sold the property in question to K2 Investment Properties, and was fully aware of their intent to replat when the property was sold. My wife and I have observed the integrity that Kyle Wallard and Kyle Tumlinson have given to the property and vouch that this has been good for our community and will not in any way be a detriment to any neighbors and or neighboring property. Furthermore, like our other neighbors, we currently receive our water from a domestic private well like the one being requested by K2 and have never in 45 years gone without water. Thank you for accepting this as our recommendation for approval of the requested water variance, as well as the approval for the requested replat. The other letter is from Joe Lindsay, and that would be my brother-in-law and sister. Their property shares a common fence with them. Their letter's very, very similar. And then the last one is from my husband and I, and we each own plats of land on the road. And again, we're in complete support of the recommendation for both of them.
Great.
And do I present these to someone?
We can take them.
I'll take them.
Any questions for the speakers?
Anybody?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are you here to speak in favor? Are you here to speak in favor on the item? Okay, perfect. Just name and address, that'd be great.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, but Addis McNamara, 1815 Trinity. I'm wanting to speak against the approval of the Lindsay Farm addition. I am property owner on 3 sides of that area, of that particular subdivision. I want to speak to the water. The water in that area is a very shallow aquifer. It's in the Brazos alluvium. The general depth of water wells in that area is 45 feet in that alluvium. Also in the recharge zone, there's over 4 major gravel pits that have exposed surface water. It's also a major agricultural area which exposes the shallow water to pesticides, herbicides, and E. coli because of the cattle that are running in that area. There are 4 water wells that I have firsthand personal knowledge of. Those in that on Lindsay Lane, the water is not drinkable, but it's used basically for washing clothes and bathing. So it's not completely potable water in that area because of the shallow aquifer. I want to also speak to Lindsay Lane. There is a low water crossing on Lindsay Lane that is between the proposed subdivision and Rock Creek Road. That low water crossing is within a 100-year floodplain. It is inundated with water on an average of 4 to 5 times each year. It is the duration of 2 to 3 days each time it is flooding. There is no outlet once that area is flooded. There are pictures in the handout that I've shown you that will show you one of the flood events last year. So I'm opposed because of the lack of water. I would tell you that it's going to be virtually impossible to get an easement from Rock Creek Road, which is where city water is located, to the proposed subdivision. We actually own about 2,500 lineal feet of Lindsay Lane. Lindsay Lane is a prescriptive easement, which means the county does not own it, but basically has an easement. The pavement in that area is 10 to 12 feet wide. The fences are within 18 to 24 inches of that pavement edge. And so because it being a prescriptive easement, once again, that's all there is. There's no basically easy way to expand or improve that area. To improve the low water crossing, which we have talked with the county several times, it would require a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer permit to basically change the low water crossing because it's located on Blue Hole Creek. It is waters of the state, meaning it's U.S. waters. The tributary area to that low water crossing exceeds over 10,000 acres upstream. So it would be a significant bridge to go over that particular crossing, which would require a U.S. Corps of Engineer permit. So once again, I tell you that the water in that area is not potable.
Thanks, sir.
And it's virtually impossible to get an easement from Rock Creek Road to the proposed subdivision. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for the speaker? And just a note for the record, Mr. McNamara is speaking in opposition to the item, so.
Yes, are you asking a question?
Nope, I just,
Okay.
no, you're good, you're good. Is there anyone else here to speak who has not spoken yet in favor of the item or in opposition to this item? Okay. Would the applicant like to make a brief rebuttal at all?
I would just like to comment back on 3 things that he hit there. One, there's, like I said, there's 17 residents there currently on domestic wells with no proof of the water not being potable. The Bosniaks themselves use the water to drink. The other thing I'd like to hit on is that the Lindsay Lane is a designated county maintained road. And on our plat, we've given a designated right-of-way for that in front of the proposed plat. The low water crossing is minor. Low water crossing, we've owned the property for almost a year now. I've never seen water over the road. And I believe all my other neighbors would say the same. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional discussion, final discussion by commissioners? Or questions? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval with conditions on the variance request, and Mr. Peters, correct me, is it a straight approval recommendation on the plat or approval with conditions on the plat?
So if the variance is granted, it would be a straight approval on the plat.
Okay.
Do we need to, do we need to have a separate hearing for the approval of the plat?
The variance first, and then we can act on the plat based on the vote on the variance.
So we'll entertain a motion on the variance initially, and then following that, we'll entertain a motion on the plat if necessary.
I move to approve the variance with conditions as per, based on staff findings.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Browse. I did not catch this second.
Second. Here. Yes.
Ms. Prisco is a second. Do we have any further discussion before we vote? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry. Harris. Jefferson,
Yes.
Reynolds. Smith.
We'll now entertain a motion on the final plat for the Lindsay Farm Estates edition.
I move that we recommend approval based on staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Reynolds. Any further discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry. Harris. Jefferson,
Yes.
Reynolds. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Peters, what is the next, I believe, variance on our agenda?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on the final plat of the Steinbeck Farm Edition, lots 2 through 4, block 1. And this is a variance request. It also includes a variance request to the requirement that the ingress egress easements meet the minimum requirements for streets per the Waco subdivision ordinance for the proposed subdivision plat entitled Final Plat of the Steinbeck Farm Edition, Steinbeck Bend Farm Edition, lots 2 through 4, block 1. Staff does recommend approval of the variance. A second, let me get to it. Concerning the road improvements for the subdivision be approved in accordance with section 7.1001 of the subdivision ordinance based on the findings and condition that extraordinary hardship or significant practical difficulties may result from strict compliance with the subdivision ordinance regulation, and the effect of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, welfare, or interest to other property. And due to the specific conditions of the site involved, strict enforcement of these regulations would impose an undue hardship on the applicant. On this one, we do have 2 conditions. One being the dedication of the utility easement within the 50-foot egress easement, and that no further subdividing will be approved until the required infrastructure is put in place and built to City of Waco standards.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. Is the applicant on this item here to speak? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. We'll entertain a motion first in regards to the variance request regarding the requirements of the ingress easement for the Steinbeck Farm Editions, lot 2 through 4, block 1.
I move that we recommend approval with conditions based on staff findings.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Browse on the variance request. Any further discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry. Harris.
Yes.
Jefferson. Reynolds. Smith.
And we'll now entertain a motion in regards to the final plat of the Steinbeck Farm Edition, lots 2 through 4, block 1.
And Mr. Chair, our recommendation on the plat is for approval.
Okay, straight approval.
I move that we recommend approval based on staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Browse, second by Mr. Smith. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse.
Yes.
Briscoe.
Yes.
Embry. Harris.
Yes.
Jefferson.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Smith.
Mr. Peters, what's the next item we'll be taking up?
So the next variance request is on agenda item 8, and this is the preliminary plat of the Chapel Wells addition. And the variance request is the requirement for block length per Waco subdivision ordinance for the preliminary plat of the Chapel Wells addition. Staff does recommend approval of the variance concerning the block length addition based on the following findings: that extraordinary hardship or significant practical difficulties may result from strict compliance with the subdivision ordinance regulations, and the effect of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, welfare, or injurious to other properties. And due to the specific conditions of the site, strict enforcement of these regulations would impose an undue hardship on the applicant. And we do not have any conditions on this recommendation. And staff, if that variance is approved, staff does recommend approval of the plat with no other conditions.
And we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak? Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Bell with Walker Partners, 823 Washington Avenue, Waco, Texas. We're the engineering and surveying firm representing the developer on this. We're here to answer any questions or anything further you'd like to know about this.
Any questions for Mr. Bell? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Close the public hearing. We'll entertain a motion first for the variance request to the requirement for block length for the Chapel Wells addition.
I move that we recommend approval based on staff findings.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Jefferson, second by Ms. Reynolds. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse.
Yes.
Briscoe.
Yes.
Embry.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Jefferson.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Smith.
We'll now entertain a motion on the preliminary plat of the Chapel Wells addition.
I move that we recommend approval based on staff findings.
I second it.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Briscoe. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse.
Yes.
Briscoe.
Yes.
Embry.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Jefferson.
Yes.
Reynolds. Smith.
Mr. Peters, what are the next plats we'll be taking up?
We're going to take, the next plats that we'll take for consideration are 1, 2, and 5. And these are all recommended for approval with no conditions. This is a public hearing to consider the following plats: preliminary plat of the Hilltop Heights addition, final plat and construction plans of the Thanksgiving Park addition, Lot 1, Block 2, and then amended preliminary plat of Sanderson Farms addition. Staff has reviewed these plats and recommends approval with no conditions.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak on this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. We'll entertain a motion on items 1, 2, and 5. We have a recommendation of straight approval from city staff on these plats.
Make a motion to approve these plats.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Briscoe, second by Mr. Embry. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse.
Yes.
Briscoe.
Yes.
Embry.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Jefferson.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Smith.
Mr. Peters, what are the final plats we'll be taking up this evening?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This is a public hearing on the following subdivision plats: final plat and construction plans of Park Meadows Edition Phase 5, preliminary plat of the Castle Rocks Edition, and then preliminary plat of the Cotton Belt Crossing Edition. Staff has reviewed these plats and recommends approval of these with conditions. And those are included in your packets, and be happy to answer any questions you have regarding those conditions.
Thank you. We will open our public hearing on these items. Are any of the applicants or their representatives here to speak on these items? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to these items? We'll close the public hearing. On items 6, 7, and 9, we have a recommendation of approval with the conditions included in our packets. We'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve with conditions based on staff findings.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Reynolds, second by Mr. Browse. Do we have any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Jefferson,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to our zoning applications. Remind me, are we taking up case Z-22-5?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. In the case of Z-22-5, what is our recommendation?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from SSP Investment LLC for 2.78 acres located along the east side of Bagby Avenue and north of Costa Drive, and for a land use change from open space and medium density residential office flex to mixed use flex, and to rezone from O1 to C2. The public hearing is currently open on this item, as we previously received a request for continuance from the applicant. We did mail out 24 notices, had 2 returned, 1 in favor, 1 with no comment, and 1 email opposed. And we have received written confirmation from the applicant to withdraw this request, and staff does recommend approval of the withdrawal request.
Thank you. Our public hearing remains open. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak in regards to the request for withdrawal of the application? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to said withdrawal? Okay, we will close the public hearing. We have a request from the applicant to withdraw this application. We'll entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend approval of the withdrawal.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Browse, second by Ms. Reynolds. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe, Embry, Harris,
Yes.
Jefferson,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-14, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Christine and Dennis Nolan for property at 3636 North 29th Street for a special permit for short-term rental type 1 in an R1A district. We mailed out 19 notices on this request and had 1 returned opposed, and 2 emails were received in opposition. Planning Services recommends approval of the special permit subject to the special provisions and conditions and based on the following findings. 1, that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area in which it is located. 3, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics in any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of a special exception. 4, that available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use. These findings are required for the granting of a special permit as per section 28-122 of the City of Waco zoning ordinance.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak? Please come on down, state your name and address, and 3 minutes. Make any statement you like.
Thank you for the timer. I was going to try to use my phone. My name is Christine Nolan. I live at 3636 North 29th, and I apologize, I'm very nervous. I'm not the biggest fan of public speaking, but I'm very excited to be here. The process has been a long time coming. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the city staff for making what was a very daunting process easier, and I appreciate that. A little about us. My husband, Dennis, and I moved to Waco in August of this year, and we absolutely love it. We have 2 college-age children who are attending MCC, and then hopefully we'll go to Baylor. My husband's employed by Baylor. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 20 years, working in psychiatry and behavioral health, and I do still work. We want to open a short-term rental because we absolutely love the city, and we love people, and we'd love to host and help them explore the city and enjoy it the way we do. Our house that we bought was a little bit of a neglected lady, and we've been making repairs, so I feel that we've already contributed to the neighborhood in that way, adding value. Some of the issues I hear people saying about short-term rentals, not in what was returned on ours, but just in the public, is that it takes a house off the market that could go to a family. This is a cottage that's essentially a full home as a laundry facility, kitchenette, bedroom, 2 bathrooms. But it would not be taking a rental for a family off the market. It's really more suited for guests. The benefits, it contributes to the tax revenue for the city, which is always a win. It also would allow me to use my property the way I would like and to fulfill the dream of hosting people, aside from just people that I know personally. It's intended for adults only. I have 2 cottages, but only 1 is habitable, so I am seeking zoning for 2. With the inspections, I would only be operating 1 cottage, but I am seeking for both so that I can make repairs if this is granted. We're following all the legal guidelines, which I think shows that we're ethical and forthcoming in our plans. And we do live in the city. We live adjacent to Park Lake, which is very busy, in between the lake and Cameron Park. So it's beautifully situated. We're near the airport. So it's a neighborhood, but it's very much in the city and well located for guests who are coming. I know that some of the feedback that was provided, I don't know how long is left on my 3 minutes because the timer isn't working, but I did read the feedback that was submitted. One of the things I want to say is one of the opposition was under the misunderstanding that this was about apartments, which it isn't. Another opposition was the loud parties that were held on the property. That preceded our time on the property. We would follow all the rules of the STR. We would always be present on the property when there are guests. So if there were an issue or some kind of negative impact of the STR, we would be affected the same as any homeowner. It's not to our benefit to do anything destructive to the neighborhood.
That might have been our 3-minute timer.
Time's up, sorry.
Right
Okay,
there.
thank you. I appreciate it.
No, you're great. Do we have any questions for Ms.
sorry.
Nolan? Just one clarifying point. You've made reference to the second dwelling on the property and the potential to fix it up in the future. You're fully aware the permit would only allow that second dwelling to be essentially overflow for 1 party as opposed to 2 different parties at the same time.
Absolutely, and that's my wish. After working in psychiatry for multiple years, I don't want any conflict between 2 groups on my property. I think it would just be the best situation for guests and for hosts to have 1 party with 2 spaces to use.
Ms. Nolan, good job, and thanks for being here. Great job on your presentation. Can you talk about is your property line completely privacy fenced? 6 foot, 8 foot? What do we have?
It is not. It's so interesting. I feel really blessed that we ended up with this home because I'm sure you know what the housing market is like, and we were looking all around Waco and we just found something that met our needs so perfectly. Between us and the neighbors, if you're looking at my house from the front, the neighbors on the side, there's actually just a chain link fence. And there's a little gate in between, and we've just been there since August. Just a chain link. It hasn't been an issue with any pets or anything like that. Behind us is a chain link with a privacy fence, and then 2 properties actually abut the rear of my property. There's a partial privacy fence that we installed where the second home behind us is, and then chain link, and then there's mixed fencing between us and the house on the right of us. And there also is fencing surrounding the area that would be provided to guests. sort of fenced in its own encapsulated area. And the borders of that, just to be clear, are the fencing that I mentioned on the back and side, and then the other fencing is through our yard. So I hope that makes sense.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Okay. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? If you can state your name and address, that'd be great.
Eddie Mazzani, living at, and Jessica Mazzani, living at 3619 North 31st Street. I've got a handout as well. I don't know if I need to pass it out or somebody else will.
Fine.
She'll get it up to us.
Perfect. Conversation. So we are the neighbors directly behind. We share a back fence with the Nolans, and our primary concern above all else is the safety of our children. We've got so many of them. We had to bring one of them here with us tonight, but I've got a 7-year-old, 2 4-year-olds, a newborn baby, and you know, we've got a variety of concerns. The loss of privacy. We live on almost an 1.5 acre lot. We love spending time in our backyard with, you know, increased traffic, foot traffic, people in there, Nolan's backyard. We're concerned about the loss of privacy there, the noise level of having more people in their backyard or in their cottages, you know, is not preferable from our perspective. You know, if you could look at the overall map, or the image there, you see the green is representing our property boundary, and we have our kids' playhouse that they spend a lot of time in when the weather's great. There's pictures of it on the opposite side to show, kind of illustrating how close we are to their proposed short-term rentals. I mean, we're less than 100 feet away. I mean, it's extremely close to one, and it's even closer for the second one. You know, the traffic aspect of things is certainly a concern. Albeit everybody would be accessing their property from 29th Street. So again, our primary concern is the safety of our kids, the safety of our family, and then, you know, keeping our neighborhood intact the way it is. And I'm one that in favor of short-term rentals, but not in this part of Waco. It's an old established part of Waco. It's a neighborhood. It's maintained its integrity, and we want to keep it that way. The closest multifamily housing is over a mile away, and it's off a major thoroughfare, Lakeshore Drive. There's no hotels, there's no other condo complexes that are closer to our streets, and I gotta think that there's a reason for that, and that's also played into why our neighborhood has maintained its integrity. But again, as you can see on the opposite side too, you see the images of our kids' playhouse, the backside of our fence. We've developed it a lot since we've moved in. And we enjoy spending time in our backyard, and we have concerns about the proximity of our backyard sharing essentially a short-term rental.
Questions for Mr. Manzanet? All righty. Well, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition to this item? If the applicant would like, you can come on down and make a brief rebuttal.
Thank you for letting me offer some more information. As far as privacy goes, we're on 1.44 acres, so even though we do share a fence, there is a great deal of space in our backyard. Between our yard and the couple in opposition's yard, as I stated, there are 2 fences between our yard and the playhouse. There is a chain link fence and a privacy fence. And I took pictures earlier today and sent them to the planning@wacotech.gov email address so that you can see that from my back deck. As far as noise, even without opposition from a neighbor, I did plan to implement quiet hours, so I will ask guests to be quiet between roughly 10 and 7 a.m., 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. To address traffic, our home is 3 houses down from the Ann Richards house, which I think is just a wonderful amenity, but it is on a tour route. Baylor has several tours on their website. There's a wonderful like Black History Tour, Women's History Tour, and this Ann Richards house is part of the Women's History Tour. We're also off Park Lake, so when people take that corner, they do take it quite fast. I don't think my STR of a few guests parking behind it is gated, parking behind our gate, nowhere near the street is going to affect the traffic in the neighborhood adversely. As far as safety and crime, I'm concerned about my own safety as well, safety of guests on my property, providing for their well-being and enjoyable experience, and we do have cameras on our property. We don't have them positioned in a way that would, we hope, violate anyone's privacy, but just to have eyes on the property, because we are also on a dry creek and somebody could make an effort, or dogs, stray dogs could come up the dry creek bed. So we do have to be mindful of those things and take precautions of those things. So we do have cameras. There are other Airbnbs nearby. There are private bedrooms being offered for rent, as well as there's a house nearby as well. And I did want to say that I do appreciate, even though, you know, having opposition to what I would like to do is not the most comfortable or pleasant feeling, I do appreciate that we all love the neighborhood so much that we want the best, and we want to be able to enjoy our property and take advantage of it and not have anything adversely happen. Of course, I can't guarantee there will never be an unruly guest, but since we'll be on site, we'll be on hand to deal with any issues. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Are there any follow-up questions for Ms. Nolan? All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, we will close our public hearing. Do we have any discussion or questions for staff or otherwise by commission members?
I do, actually. Based on the layout we have in the packet, would that show whether there were any other STRs within the picture that was provided in the packet?
On the maps?
Yeah, on the map.
We don't have a map in there showing any other registered short-term rentals. The last time I checked, there were none within at least 500 feet of this property.
So I guess my question is, if there were any visible in the maps that are in our packet, would they be listed, or that's not something that was drawn in?
I'm not sure I understood your question.
So is your answer that there aren't any in here, or that's not something that was looked at when you printed out these maps?
It was looked at, but we didn't actually create a map, an STR map showing the surrounding registered short-term rentals in Waco, but I do know that there are none, at least within 500 feet of this one.
I do believe 500 feet, the visible layouts that we have in our packet are larger than a 500-foot buffer, though. For what, if that's what you're...
Yeah, so I guess I was wondering, does the city happen to know whether there are any STRs within the buffer that's on the map?
There are none within the buffer that are, at least that we're aware of, that and that are registered with the city.
Okay.
B, do you know if there's a city ordinance that does it have to be 6-foot privacy fenced, or is it easier to get an 8-foot privacy fence for an STR, or STR has to be fenced? Are we aware of any kind of fencing regulation?
There's not a fencing requirement for a short-term rental specifically. We do have an ordinance that addresses fence height maximums, and so in residential zoning, there's a maximum height of a 6-foot privacy fence. It doesn't mean that you have to build a 6-foot fence. In commercial and office zoning, it does allow for an 8-foot fence. But if that is something that the commission wanted to consider as part of a potentially an added condition for the special permit, that is something that can be discussed.
An 8-foot privacy fence?
Not an 8-foot.
We can't do that?
No, because the residential zoning does not allow an 8-foot. It allows only up to 6 feet.
Not without a variance.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, the other option that is available for the commission to consider is if you want to just recommend the STR on the one unit and not the second cottage that's closer to the rear property line. That is something you could do with an amendment to the conditions.
Speaking personally, were we to recommend approval to council, I would be far more comfortable with that arrangement. Personal opinion.
Just kind of to speak to that, I feel like I generally default to staff recommendations whenever we hear something like this, and, you know, we know it has to go to city council after we either approve or recommend disapproval. So I'd kind of be inclined to take the opposite approach there, Ross, and approve as recommended by staff, and then if there needed to be some sort of variance or adjustment, then maybe let that be handled at the council level. But that's just my kind of thought process on it.
That's great.
I can make a motion if we need to, and we can.
Yeah. Any further discussion before we entertain a motion in regards to the STR1 application?
I did want to address Mr. Browse's question from earlier. We did look on our map of registered short-term rentals, and it looks like the nearest one is on the other side of Park Lake. Probably, it's off of 30th Street. I would say a couple blocks over. But again, not within the 500-foot radius of this one. So just wanted to share that information.
Thank you, B.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll entertain a motion on this item.
Just to clarify, is this with conditions? Is approval with conditions?
Correct. It's subject to special provisions and conditions.
Okay, then I move that we recommend approval with conditions based on staff findings.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Reynolds. Any final discussion?
Is that with the added condition? No.
As it stands
recommended
in the
by staff.
packet.
I see.
Please poll the commission.
No.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Harris,
No.
Jefferson,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Smith? Yes.
In the case of Z-22-18, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Paul Potee on behalf of Surge Development for property at 2421 to 2423 Bagby Avenue to rezone from C2 and R2 to R3C. We mailed out 91 notices and had 0 return on this particular request. Planning Services recommends approval of this request to change the zoning from R2 and C2 to R3C based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the property meets all the area and width requirements for the R3C zoning district. 3, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in the R3C zoning district. 4, the existing zoning allows multifamily, and there is other multifamily zoning in the vicinity of the subject property. And 5, the proposed R3C zoning is more compatible with the surrounding area than the existing C2 zoning.
Thank you. I'll open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak on this item? Please come forward, state your name and address, and make your comments to the commission.
Good evening, Commission and staff. My name is Dennis Richmond. I'm at 7200 Dallas Parkway in Plano, Texas. I represent Surge Development here tonight. Just want to compliment first the staff that you have here and the great work that they've helped us do, their availability and the professionalism in helping us walk through this process and give us some guidance. And we're here to answer any questions about this requested zoning change.
Thank you. Do Do we have any questions for Mr. Richmond? All right, thank you. We certainly agree with your assessment of staff. So, is there anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Is there anyone else here, or is there anyone here to speak in opposition on this item? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Do we have any discussion before we entertain a motion? We have a recommendation of approval from city staff, and we will entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend approval based on staff findings.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Jefferson, second by Ms. Browse. Sorry, Ms. Briscoe. Straight line through. Do we have any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Yes. Briscoe?
Yes.
Embry? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Jefferson?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-19, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Namye Gautam for property located at 100 Garden Drive, property ID 173906, and 0.59 acres of land out of the J. French survey being part of the same tract of land conveyed to E.F. Ashelman as recorded in volume 807, page 51 of the McLennan County Deed of Records, located southwest of the intersection of Garden Drive and South University Parks, property ID 314683. The request is for a land use change from urban residential to mixed use flex and a rezone from O3 to O2. Staff mailed out 31 notices and had 0 returned. Planning Services recommends approval of the request to change the land use designation from urban residential to mixed-use flex. Based on the following findings, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for zoning districts allowed in the proposed mixed-use flex land use designation. 2, the property is located at the intersection of 2 major streets, East Garden Drive and South University Parks Drive. Planning Services also recommends approval of this request to change the zoning from O3 to O2 based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan as revised and the purpose of the College and University Neighborhoods District. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in the O2 zoning district. 3, the property is located near the intersection of 2 major streets, East Garden Drive and South University Parks Drive. And 4, the property meets all the area and width requirements for the O2 zoning district.
Thank you. And we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak on this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Or anyone else here to speak in favor, I'm sorry.
I can answer any question if you have.
Okay. You don't have to come down, but if you'd like to, please state your name and address. That's great.
My name is Nomi Gautam. Good evening. We're just trying to get this land to develop a multi-unit residence and some convenience stores in front of it. And I think it's going to bring good value to the neighborhood, and I hope this gets approved.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from Mr. Gautam? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here to speak in favor of the item? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval on the land use change as well as the zoning change. And unless there's further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve based on staff findings.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Briscoe, second by Mr. Browse. Do we have any final discussion? Commission.
Browse?
Yes.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Embry?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Jefferson?
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Smith,
Thank you. In the case of Z-22-20, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Wazir Danani for a property, or approximately 1.6 acres of land out of 4200 South University Parks Drive, property ID 183953, to request a land use change from suburban residential to mixed-use flex and a rezone from R1B to C2. Staff mailed out 37 notices and had one returned in favor. Planning Services recommends approval of this request to change the land use designation from suburban residential to mixed-use flex based on the following findings. One, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for zoning districts allowed in the proposed mixed-use flex land use designation. Two, the property is located near the intersection of two major streets, State Highway 6, Loop 340, and South University Parks Drive. Planning Services also recommends approval of this request to change the zoning from R1B to C2 based on the following findings. One, the proposed zoning is in keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan as revised. Two, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in the C2 zoning district. Three, the property meets all the area and width requirements for the C2 zoning district. Four, there is C2 zoning adjacent to the property. Five, the proposed C2 zoning will bring the existing commercial building into conformance with the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? If you'd like to come down, please state your name and address and make your comments to the commission.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wazir Danani. I'm 3820 Franklin Avenue. I'm the owner of such property. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Danani? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone?
Just one comment.
Yes, please.
Staff was so wonderful. It just made my life easy. I just want you to know that they did an excellent job educating me.
Awesome. Perfect. It's great to hear. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Would anybody like to speak in opposition to this item? We'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval on the land use change as well as the rezoning, and we will entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend approval based on staff findings.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Jefferson. Do we have any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Jefferson, Reynolds,
Yes.
Smith,
In the case of Z-22-21, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as the application by Alliance Syndicate 2 LP for 1.559 acre tract of land situated in the B Road Survey Abstract number 759, McLean County, Texas, and being a portion of the remainder of that called 70.32 acre tract of land described in a deed to Alliance Syndicate 2 LP is recorded in MCC number 20140266928 of the official public records of McLennan County, Texas, OPR MCT, and also being a portion of the proposed Block 3 of the Chapel Ridge Addition Phase 11, and located southeast of Chapel Road and Ritchie Road. And request is for a rezone from R1B to R2. We did get an email from the applicant, written request to continue the rezoning application, and staff recommends approval of the request to continue the case to the April 26th Plan Commission meeting.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and open our public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak? Is anyone here to speak in favor of the item? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay. I'm going to keep the public hearing open. Applicant has requested to continue this item until the April 26th meeting. We have a recommendation from staff to approve that request. So unless there's further discussion, we'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Yeah, I move that we recommend approval of the continuance.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Browse, second by Mr. Embry, to continue this item. Unless there's further discussion, please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Jefferson, Reynolds,
Yes.
Smith.
Agenda item for this evening. We'll adjourn the meeting.